Hello everyone, and welcome to my The Bold Fans channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Electra's palm trembled as she held the knife, its blade glinting faintly in the low light of the attic. Her breath came in short spurts, each one a struggle against the enormity of what she was about to do. Across from her, Luna remained motionless, her back turned as she rummaged through an ancient wooden chest, her quiet hum breaking the silence. Will sat on a creaking stool in the corner, watched them both, his eyes wide with silent horror that had grown over weeks. The attic was their safe haven, where the three of them, Electra, Luna, and Will, had spent endless hours since childhood. It was a refuge of dusty books, lost treasures, and whispered secrets, hidden away in Luna's grandmother's crumbling Victorian home. They'd grown up together, inseparable, united by an unbreakable relationship. But nothing is invincible, especially when trust begins to shred like an old rope, unraveling beneath the weight of hidden realities. Electra's mind raced, recalling the moment she discovered the note. It was buried beneath a loose floorboard in this attic, within Luna's journal, which she assumed no one knew about. The words were etched in Electra's memory. "I can't keep pretending. Will loves me, not her. I apologize, Electra, but I have to inform him." Luna's typically immaculate handwriting had become unsteady, as if the revelation had cost her something. Electra had read it repeatedly, each word a knife in its own right, stabbing deeper than she had imagined possible. Luna, her dearest friend who understood every detail of her heart, had deceived her. Will, unaware to the storm developing in Electra's chest, has become aloof recently. His normal warmth had disappeared, and he no longer looked at Electra as if she were the only person in the room. She'd noticed him stealing glances at Luna, his eyes lingering a bit too long, and his laughter a little too loud as Luna talked. Electra attempted to disregard it, telling herself it was nothing, but the letter confirmed her darkest worries. Luna was more than simply a friend. She was her rival, thief, and undoer. Electra held the knife in her hand, and it felt cold and foreign. She hadn't planned it. She had simply brought it up to the attic to cut the rope on an old box of photographs, or so she told herself. But when Luna's humming became softer and Will's apprehensive stare shifted between them, something inside Electra broke. The grief, the betrayal, the agonizing idea of losing them both, it was all too much. She could not let Luna take him. She could not let Luna win. "Luna," Electra replied, barely above a whisper. Luna turned, her dark hair catching the dim light. Her eyes filled with the effortless tenderness that had always made Electra feel comfortable but inadequate. "What's up?" Luna inquired, smiling, unaware of the storm in Electra's gaze. Electra tightened her hold. Her heart pumped like a drum, drowning out reason. She took a step forward and the floor creaked beneath her. Will's head shot up and his brow furrowed. "Electra," he replied, his voice full of worry. He stood with the stool grinding against the wooden floor. But it was too late. Electra lunged, crying something between a sob and a scream. The knife flashed a glittering arc in the dim light before plunging into Luna's stomach. Luna screamed, her eyes widening in surprise, and her hands immediately reached for the sword. She lurched back and crashed into the chest, her humming replaced by a strangled, guttural moan. Blood blossomed on her clothing, black and spreading like ink on paper. Will shouted, a harsh, shattered sound reverberating throughout the attic. He dashed to Luna's side, grabbing her as she collapsed to the ground. "Luna! Oh no!" His hand squeezed against the cut, desperate and helpless, as blood trickled through his fingertips. His voice cracked as tears spilled down his face. "Electra, what did you do?" Electra stood still, the knife sliding from her grip and clattering to the ground. Her mind was a maelstrom of remorse and wrath, as well as a momentary and nauseating sense of relief. She had stopped it. She had prevented Luna from stealing him. But as she watched Luna's eyelids flutter and her breath become shallow, the realization of what she had done hit her like a tidal wave. "I didn't mean." Electra stuttered, but her words felt hollow and useless. She dropped to her knees, her hands quivering as she reached out, then backed away, scared to touch the scene she'd made. Luna's gaze met hers, filled with tragic perplexity rather than fury. "Why?" Luna mumbled, barely audible, before closing her eyes and remaining still. Will's cries filled the attic, a sound that Electra would remember for the rest of her life. He cradled Luna's head, tears cascading on her thin face. "You killed her," he exclaimed, his voice breaking. "You killed her, Electra." He couldn't look at her, which was worse than the charge. The attic, which had once been their haven, now felt like a tomb, the air heavy with the coppery aroma of blood and the weight of what could not be undone. Electra's memory was fractured, memories flashing like a broken reel. The three of them laughing under the stars, swearing to be friends forever. Luna braided Electra's hair at a sleepover, while showing them how to skip stones across the lake. Those moments were lost, corrupted, and buried beneath the blood on her hands. She lurched to her feet, turning away from Luna's body, Will's sadness, and the truth of who she had become. The evil note tumbled to the floor from her pocket. Will's gaze fixed on it, and he grabbed for it with shaky hands, his face twisting as he read the words. "This," he exclaimed, his voice harsh. "This is why. Electra, I never." He gulped and shook his head. "I loved you. Not her. You." The word struck her like a physical blow, robbing her breath. She'd been mistaken. The letter, Luna's confession, had not been reciprocated. Will had not selected Luna. Electra had always been his choice. The knowledge was a terrible twist of the knife she'd used, causing a wound worse than the one she'd inflicted on Luna. She had wrecked everything for nothing. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Someone must have heard the screaming and noticed the blood oozing through the attic floors. Electra did not move. She could not. She stood there, staring at Luna's lifeless form, Will's broken figure, and the crumpled paper in his palm. The world she knew was gone, and she was the one who had burned it down. The cops arrived, their boots heavy on the stairwell. They discovered Electra standing in the middle of the attic, her hands smeared red and her eyes empty. Will remained on the floor, hugging Luna and refusing to let go, even as they attempted to pull him away. The officers talked in low, frantic tones, but Electra did not hear them. She was immersed in the echo of her own scream, the remembrance of Luna's last breath, and the unavoidable truth. I killed her. The next few days were a whirl of frigid cells, bright lights, and inquiries that Electra couldn't answer. The trial went quickly, and the evidence was undeniable. The letter was read aloud in court, with each word representing a public dissection of her heart. Will never looked at her, his face a mask of pain and betrayal. The jury's verdict was unanimous, guilty. The actual punishment, however, was not the sentence or the years she would spend in prison. It was the silence, the loss of Luna's laughter, Will's warmth, and their shared life. Electra repeated the scene in the attic in her cell, looking for the point at which she could have stopped and made a different decision. However, there was no going back. The knife had taken more than Luna's life. It had broken the thread that linked them all together. And as the years passed, Electra bore the weight of that night, a burden greater than any chain. She penned hundreds of letters to Will, but never mailed any. They piled up in her cage, a testament to her regret. In them she expressed her grief, apologies, and love. But words could not repair what she had done. They couldn't bring Luna back. They couldn't get Will to look at her like he used to. Electra would close her eyes late at night, when the jail was silent, and imagine the attic as it had once been. She'd notice Luna's smile, hear Will's laughter, and feel the warmth of their companionship. But each recollection ended the same way, with a knife in her palm, blood on the floor, and Will's shattered wail echoing in her ears. And she'd wake up gasping, knowing that no amount of time or tears could ever wipe away the reality. She'd killed her. And in doing so, she murdered herself. Electra's hands were trembling even before the knife emerged. She had been sitting in the corner of the dim room, her eyes sunken, her voice broken, repeating words that appeared to be in another language, yet were easy enough for anybody to understand. I killed her. I killed her. The echo of her confession hung in the air like a terrible fog, and the walls appeared to quiver every time she spoke. Will stood beside her, unable to breathe properly, as if the universe had abruptly transformed into a state where air no longer existed. The warmth of the lamps overhead seemed chilly, the floor beneath his feet shaky, and all the sounds of life, the ticking clock, the distant wind outside, were drowned out by the single inconceivable memory replaying in his head. It had happened so fast, too swiftly for him to intervene. Too quickly for Luna to utter anything more than a gasp, and too quickly for the universe to take notice. Electra had taken out the knife. Her face was sculpted by shadows, her eyes shining with tears and wrath that were inextricably linked. Will had yelled, screamed, and begged, but the sharp glitter of steel sliced through the air before his words reached her. Luna, standing between them, her chest rising in delicate breaths, had enlarged her eyes, confusion, grief, and love all flickering in the brief moment she had left. The sword slipped into her stomach, and her breath shattered like glass. Luna faltered, her hands immediately leaping to the wound, as if she could reverse time and undo it. Her knees bent, her body collapsed, and her lips attempted to form Will's name, but only blood flowed through. Will grabbed her, his arms wrapping around her weightless form, his pulse racing with the sound of her final exhale. By the time he looked up, Electra had already dropped the knife. Her fingers jerked as if burnt. Her mouth expanded and closed like someone who had screamed too loudly and lost their voice. Then came the words, rough and harsh, nearly unrecognizable. I killed her. I killed her. Will remained kneeling, Luna's head cradled against his chest, rocking back and forth as if movement might keep her here, as if swaying could restart her heartbeat. His tears saturated her hair, his cries muffled against her flesh, becoming colder with each passing second. The air in the room smelled like iron. The world ended quietly, not with thunder or pandemonium, but with the gradual extinguishment of the light in Luna's eyes. Electra did not run. She did not conceal. She simply remained there, her body motionless as if shackled to the earth by guilt itself. Will raised his head, his face moist and marred by anguish, to look at her. For a time there were no words. He could not speak, yell, or curse her. All he could do was stare, his chest heaving from the weight of something too big to name. Electra's lips quivered. She tried to explain, but there is no explanation for this. Her wrath, jealousy, and desperation could not excuse the crimson that had spread across Luna's clothing. Still, she mumbled the confession repeatedly, as if it were a curse she wished to bury herself in. I killed her. I killed her. Days felt like years. The world around him continued to revolve, the sun rose and set, but Will saw time as a merciless repetition of the moment he couldn't escape. Every time he closed his eyes he saw Luna smiling, her laughter echoing through the garden, her soft touch brushing against his, her sweet voice. The knife was followed by a gasp and quiet. He remembered Luna leaning into him when she was tired, humming as she cooked, and how her hair sparkled in the morning light. She was alive in every part of his memory, but the fact was harsh. Her body lay beneath the dirt, her heart no longer beating, and her lips would never form his name again. Electra was taken away, but it didn't matter. No retribution in the world could compare to the punishment that was already inscribed in Will's spirit. He replayed the scene indefinitely, asking questions with no answers. Could I have prevented it? Should I have seen this coming? Why did not I protect her? The guilt gnawed at him till he could hardly breathe. Electra too was consumed. In her cell, she sat on the chilly ground, uttering the same words until her neck bled. I murdered her. I killed her. She recalled the incident differently. It wasn't just the deed that mattered to her. It was also everything that came before it. Her jealousy, fueled by years of feeling unnoticed, became terrible when Luna entered the picture. Will had once belonged to her, perhaps not physically, but spiritually. She had assumed that no one could understand him like she did. But Luna, with her serene grace and inexhaustible patience, had shown him a tenderness that Electra could never match. And Electra felt herself disappearing, melting into shadows, unrecognized and undesired. The knife was never intended to be used. She told herself this numerous times. She merely wanted to terrify Luna, make her back away, and regain what she believed belonged to her. But as Luna reached out, not in fear, but in compassion, Electra's fury erupted, and her hand moved before her consciousness could stop it. The sight of Luna's forgiving eyes at the very end tortured her. Even as her life drained away, Luna looked at her with grief rather than hatred. She seemed to feel sorry for Electra, as if she had forgiven her. The mercy was terrible. It hollowed her from within. Months passed into years. Will's anguish did not vanish. It simply turned into stillness. He stopped speaking and laughing totally. Friends tried to console him, but he acted as if the world had faded beyond repair. He visited Luna's cemetery frequently, sitting for hours and murmuring stories as if she were still with him. He remembered Luna braiding flowers into his hair as they walked through meadows, resting her chin on his shoulder and pointing at clouds, which she named after animals. Those were the only memories he had, and they were blades disguised as comfort. Electra stayed in prison, a ghost disguised in human skin. Her body aged, but her mind remained stuck in that night. She yelled, grieved silently, and laughed bitterly at the memory of her crime. But every time the storm passed, she returned to the same weak phrase, "I killed her." Years later, Will returned to the scene of the crime. The house had been abandoned, with damaged windows and dust-covered walls. He stood in the midst of the room, the silence weighing heavily on him. The bloodstain was vanished, but he could still see it and hear Luna's final breath in the air. He dropped to his knees, his chest straining as he whispered her name. He implored the cosmos to roll back time and give him one more day, minute, and chance to grasp her hand. But only quiet responded. In her final days, Electra wrote a letter that was never mailed. Her hand shook furiously, smearing the ink across the sheet, but the words were clear. "I cannot reverse what I have done. I thought killing her would make me feel alive, but instead it made me dead while still breathing. Every night I see her eyes. She forgives me, and this forgiveness destroys me more than any punishment. I'd go to any length to bring her back. Luna, I was never your rival. I was just a shadow, and shadows cannot survive without light." She folded the letter and hid it under her pillow, but no one ever came to claim it. Will lived with the spirit of Luna, and Electra died with the ghost of guilt. In the end, each conveyed the same painful truth. One moment of wrath had permanently ruined 3 lives. In the hush that followed, only Electra's words lingered, circling ceaselessly through time. "I killed her. I killed her." Years had passed before the knife and the blood. Will recalled the summer when he first saw Luna by the river, her bare feet splashing in the water while she sung an ancient song. He was pulled to her like a moth to a flame, not because she was dazzling in the conventional sense, but because she exuded a serene peace he had never experienced before. Electra had also been there back then. She was a fiery, restless buddy who drew him into storms when he preferred peace. They had laughed once, genuine mirth, before envy had developed in her heart. She had loved him in her own crazy way, but Will never saw her as she desired. When Luna entered his life, Electra felt pushed to the sidelines, despite Will's best intentions. Her jealousy festered like an untreated sore. By the time the knife came, she was already submerged in darkness. Years later, when people talked about Luna, they always stated she was nice and made others feel good. But Will knew better. She was more than just nice. She was the tether that kept their frail universe together. When she died, the thread snapped, and the 3 of them, Luna, Will, and Electra, were lost in the unwinding.